All right, guys, we're back on. I switched over to Marvel's Avengers because we beat Portal faster than I thought. Okay. So I wanted to just kind of start by sharing a little bit about me uh, and my story. I was planning on doing this during the Portal playthrough, but we beat it a little bit faster than I thought, so we'll just do it now, and that's fine. This is just we'll just be casually playing this game kind of in the background while we talk. Uh, yeah, so I mentioned in the first stream that I ever did last Monday that my hope for this channel was twofold. One is to just casually play games, relax, talk to you guys. But secondly, and the most important thing, is uh, to share what is the most important part of my life, which is my faith. And in order to do that, it's that faith is an inherently personal concept, and without really knowing a little bit about me and my background, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense, honestly. And if you're just jumping in here to watch me play video games, that's cool. And I think uh, the way I want to approach this is just sort of talking about the salient details, so that sharing more, which is my desire to really get into this topic more, uh, will make sense, right? To lay a framework for that, a groundwork for that. So, um, the I guess to start, I um, grew up in a Christian home, in a Christian family. Uh, Both my parents are believers, and two of my three siblings are. Um, so why is that important? You might ask. So oftentimes, our worldview is shaped by how we grew up and our experiences as children, uh, growing into middle school, high school, and moving out of the home, going for those of us that go to college, going to college, and then after that, getting a job, settling down, whatever you do, uh, whatever one may choose to do with their life after that point, usually in their 20s. Um, that's the faith background, or the faith profile, if you will, of your family growing up is going to have a huge influence on who you are. And I'm not gonna shy away from talking about that. That's the reality of having faith, and coming to know what the world is, and your perception of the world, and your perception of spirituality. So that isn't to say that that's the end all be all, as if you should adopt whatever views your parents have, no questions asked, and never question that. I'm not saying that at all. Just saying that it's influential. So I grew up in a Christian home. I was actually homeschooled, uh, which is, to my surprise, as I was growing up, um, being homeschooled was actually something that very few people really understood what that actually meant. Um, the traditional homeschooling is uh, can really be a few different things. It's kind of on a spectrum, actually. But when people think of homeschooling, they think that you don't go to public school, you don't go to a private school, you stay at home and you do all your schooling from home, and your parents teach you everything. Um, and while that does exist, there certainly are families that go that route. That is not the route that I went. It was that way until uh, pretty much until eighth grade, I think it was, or ninth grade. So the beginning of high school, freshman year of high school. Um, and I did spend 1 year, I think it was third grade, at a co-op school that has now grown to be much bigger, and my parents are involved in that. That has hundreds of students now. Back then, it was just a few families. And you'll hear that term co-op school. That's actually something that's really frequent for families that homeschool, is to basically pool resources together to, uh, let's see, do we want to do, I guess, let's see, let's take a look at the objectives real quick. I want to make sure we're doing the right iconic Avengers mission chain. I guess we can try to do the Hulk missions. Change here. Let's switch to the Hulk, and then we'll do the Hulk missions. Sorry, I just want to get this going, and then we'll get back to what we were talking about. Incredible Hulk, defeat enemies using power attacks. Global mission objectives, reassemble. I don't think there's any Hulk specific missions to do at the moment. Let's just do this. I think this will be fine. So the co-op school that I mentioned, that's a really common term that's thrown around, and it just means that families are pooling together their resources to school, and it may involve parents that are good at certain subjects like math or science or history to teach the kids from other families, maybe 5 to 10 kids, something like that. It's usually not huge, but in my case, back in third grade, it was, I think, like 7 or 8 families. And the parents would pool in, it would pitch in to teach the kids. Sometimes the families will hire someone to come in and teach them. That's not what we did, but at first anyway. But that is something that some families do. Later on, the co-op school that I belonged to did grow into more of a traditional school, and it did start hiring people, and started an administrative branch, and it's to be basically more like a private school. So anyway, I don't mean to spend a ton of time talking about homeschooling. It's more just to point out that the curriculum that we were given as kids was definitely shaped around Christianity, and around there's that we were given a positive outlook on that through the different subjects that we learned. So history, even science at times. So it just, my desire to be honest with you guys, like that was obviously an influence for me growing up. But really, the main thing that I think is kind of important to share is that it, you know I prayed a prayer when I was 4 years old, to invite Jesus into my life, and you're wondering, okay, what the heck does that mean? And I'll explain what that means. We're going to explain all this stuff as we go, but at a young age, that's too young to really know what you believe, and of course that's true. And but a lot of kids do pray that prayer, and they mean it sincerely at the time. Like when you're 4 and you desire something, like you desire it, even though you may not necessarily intellectually understand everything about what being a Christian entails, for example, or what, like let's say, I want to play football. You may not understand everything that football entails, but you still want that thing. And so as a 4-year-old, I prayed a prayer and said, I believe in God, and I want Jesus to be in my life. And so fast forward a bunch of years, and we get to high school time, and that was really when, for me, I started to have to kind of take things seriously, basically make a decision for myself whether I wanted to continue pursuing Christianity as I knew it. Was my faith real? What did it really mean to me? What are sort of the intellectual and emotional challenges of being a believer? Like those things are things that I think every Christian has to ask themselves, and I think really honestly anybody that is considering their worldview has to consider those questions at some point or another. And for me, that just happened to be in when I was 17. I had a good friend that I still know him. We don't live locally anymore, but he basically challenged me and said, "Look, I don't see you living out this life. I don't see your faith changing you for the better." And it really caused me to pause and wonder, like, what am I doing or not doing that is causing me to kind of be stale? And so I thought about it a lot, and it was the most impactful statement I've ever heard from someone about my personal life and the direction that my life was headed. And it made me realize that, yeah, I wasn't really taking things seriously. I was, I would pray, I would read the Bible occasionally, I would have conversations around what it meant to believe in God, and what kind of practical impact that had on my life. But I didn't, my behavior, my outward life I wasn't really living out that, the way, if you will, and I'll say this phrase, the way a Christian should live. And that's a kind of a dangerous phrase, I know, for someone that may be unfamiliar with Christianity, or may have Christianity, the idea of that may put a bad taste in your mouth. I'll explain what I mean by that later. But it's just, I wasn't being faithful to what I said that I believed, essentially. I think you can think of it like that in simple terms. And so I made the decision to make that serious, to really pursue my relationship with God in a meaningful way again. And that has permanently changed my life since. The direction of my life is very different than it would have been if I had not made that decision. And so, sorry, where's this red target? Oh, there he's up there. Okay. So that cleared out this zone.
Shield units will keep AIM busy in the other sectors. Let's go find Taskmaster.
So we can go after the other boxes.
Knowing him, look for the biggest, tallest building.
So that was kind of the big turning point for me at age 17. And then I went to secular university, public school, to study mechanical engineering. Was there for 5 years, got my master's, and during that time, uh, I met some other Christians. I met lots of non-Christians too. I made relationships of all kinds during that time and learned a lot and grew a lot as a person, which I think is true for most people that go to college. Um, it's that time of independence where we learn a lot of things about ourselves that we didn't know when we were living uh, at home with our parents. For those of us that grew up with one or more parents, um, and so uh, I can't remember anything about college in particular that was faith changing for me. Um, when I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to share tonight, I couldn't really come up with anything in college specifically that was really relevant to talk about. So we'll probably not spend a whole lot of time on that. Um, so anyway, so I studied mechanical engineering, got my master's, and then I came actually back up to the to live nearby where I grew up, and kind of started a life here. And I've been here since. I uh, met my uh, now wife here, and I have a 2-year-old son now. So this is where I've settled, and for now we're not sure we're going to stay here, but for now this is where I am. So anyway, I guess that's kind of like the relevant background information for me to be able to share some of the things that I want to share with you guys. And I'm wondering, so we take out the elite team, and then, sorry if you're watching this and you're like really good at this game, or you've gotten far in this game. I've played, I don't know how many hours, probably like 30, 40 hours. So I've got a level 140 Captain America, and right now I'm trying to work through the mission chain that gives you the exotic artifact. So it requires me to play to complete the iconic mission chain for all the other heroes. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I'm not just mindlessly wandering around as Hulk. I'm actually trying to complete his quest line. So fundamentally, like, listening to my story, if you were patient enough to do that, one of the things that well, let me put it this way. My story alone may not be enough to cause you to question your own belief system. And we don't, because sometimes people's beliefs don't line up with objective reality. And so, of course, we don't just change what we believe just based on one person's experience. Normally. That isn't to say that someone sharing what they believe and that maybe they're sharing things that are true and you need to take them seriously. And I hope that that's what you'll do in hearing me out. But that isn't enough. Just hearing my story isn't enough to say, oh, I need to change my life now. And I'm not expecting that. That's not the point. The point is really to just give you some background so you know where I'm coming from. Fundamentally, what we need is we need something objective to measure our beliefs against. What are some external things about the world, about reality, that we can compare our experience to and then say, oh, okay, my experience lines up with truth, objective truth. So, for example, since we're talking about Christianity, out in the open, wide open, that's what we're talking about. Uh, what are some things about Christianity where you say, what do I need to observe about reality in order to become a Christian, right? What would be the thing? What are some things that I would need, or at least to make the concept of Christianity palatable from an intellectual standpoint, and possibly an emotional standpoint as well. But I'll stay focused on the intellectual side. Um, what are some things we need to do, or see, or observe, or what fact finding do we need to do, if you will, to uh, match our experience to some kind of objective reality. So that's the theoretical part of it. The practical part is, okay, so in my experience, I believe I have a relationship with God, with the creator of the universe. And that's a huge thing to say. It's very weighty, and for anybody that does believe that, it's going to be the most important thing that you believe, and in the most important thing in their life. So for anybody that does say that, they don't take that lightly, and of course we should not take that lightly. But what are the things that we observe about reality that make us believe that, or incentivize us to believe that? Well, I think there's lots of things. Honestly, I think there's a ton of things. I think creation is one. The world we live in, the intricacy of the design of the universe. Those are a few things. Now, I know those things are debated, and I'm not. Trust me, we could have long discussions about any of the things that I'm saying tonight, and I'm happy to have those discussions, and we are going to have those discussions. I don't expect you guys to take what I'm saying at face value. That's not what this channel is going to be about. I'm not here to lecture or demand belief from you. I'm here to share and hopefully open up some discussion, reasonable, kind, gracious discussion about the reality of the world that we live in, and what is truth, and how can we find truth, and how can we be encouraged and hopeful of truth. So those are some things that tell us, okay, maybe there is a God. Maybe he's out there. Maybe I should think about that more and see what kind of implication that might have or should have on my life. And some people, I've known some people that have looked at the world and said, you know what, there's no way this could have come by random chance. So I think there's a God, but he seems kind of distant. There seems like there's a lot of bad things that happen in the world. There's a lot of suffering, pain, loved ones die, people have cancer, there's tornadoes that kill seemingly innocent families in the middle of South Dakota. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen that cause us to question, well, if there is a God, which there's plenty of reasons to think that there is, then why does he allow at least apparent evil to happen? And that's a question, definitely a topic that we're going to talk about, and I would love to talk about that in greater detail. But for now, I just am pointing to that as a potential objection that someone might have to accepting that God is anything more than just a distant, passive creator of the universe, but he doesn't care about you. He doesn't want to have a relationship with you, much less actually work things for your good and for your favor. So that's an understandable concern to have. Now, working kind of more specifically into the realm of Christianity, Christianity is a particularized version of belief in God. So in Christianity, we don't believe just that God exists. We believe a lot more than that. We believe that he is a personal, all good, all loving, all powerful creator who not only made the world but made us, designed us in a particular way, designed the world in a particular way, and the most important component of his involvement in mankind, in the history of mankind, is the sending of his son, Jesus Christ, to come and pay the penalty for our wrongdoing. So that begs the question, well, what have we done wrong? What is it about humanity that is in a state of being wrong, of being sinful, of being broken? And as a believer in Christ, as a Christian, I believe that people have messed up, that people are broken, that people have wandered away from God's intended design, from what God intended people to do and to be. And as a result of that, we fall short of his infinite glory and power and holiness. And so because of that, there's a chasm created between us and him. We are not on his level. And even if we were to be perfect, we still wouldn't be on his level because we're not infinite beings. We're created by him, so of course we can't be the same. A pot cannot be the same as the potter. They're not on this. They never will be on the same level, even if the pot is the most immaculate, perfectly constructed pot in the history of pots. They'll never be on the same level. So that's not the point. The point is not to say, okay, well, if we had been perfect, we would have been on the same level with God, so what happened? No. We'll never be on the same level with God, and we never were. But what we did do was we chose to disobey him. We chose to reject his perfect plan for us. And as a result, we are what we call in Christianity, we have what's called a sin nature. We are innately wander away from what God has designed for us. So, given that, if you accept that, and I understand if it's too soon to accept that, but I would ask, if you don't accept it, I would ask just one question, which is, do you think that there are areas of your life that are broken? Do you always interact with people in ways that are good, in ways that are helpful, edifying, uplifting? Have you ever hurt someone? Have you ever done something that you weren't proud of? All those kinds of questions. If you answer yes, and I think we would all answer yes to all of those questions, and if you wouldn't answer yes, then to be honest, you're probably fooling yourself. We would all answer yes to those questions, which means that we can all agree that none of us are perfect. If we can't get anywhere else, we can at least agree that none of us are perfect. So I feel like I need to start practicing some of his moves, because right now I'm just using the light attack and I'm not getting anywhere doing that. So I think L1 R1 is the slam, and then L1 is he rocks the ground, and I think he doesn't he go into like super mode when he does that, like he does extra damage or something? And I know I can grab people too. I need to start practicing doing that. Let's see. Okay, so L. Oh, so holding R2 will regen my health based on my innate energy, or whatever that's called, the hero energy. But how do I grab people?
but I'm sure he's listening. Let's get this done.
Oh, I think you charge into people and then it. If you R1 and you hit an enemy, I think you grab them and slam them on the ground or something. I should remember this, but it's been so long since I played Hulk. I really only been playing Captain America for the last many hours that I played, and I've been coming in and out of this game. I think they need to kind of fix some things. Like, they need to fix the loot system. They need to fix matchmaking. Well, matchmaking is partly bad because I don't think there's that many people playing this game, but they need to fix. It's just it takes forever to matchmake with people. It's really buggy. You can get kicked from matches. There will be quests that will bug out when you're with people. Just really basic things that they need to fix.
Get that elevator open. We're going down. Hurry.
Okay, so let's get to the elevator. And let's check the quest real quick. So I was on complete Heart of the Monster mission. Okay, so we'll just finish this quest to get XP and the loot and stuff, and then we'll go do the Heart of the Monster. So if we have time, we might not have time. I'm going to be trying to be getting off at midnight. So yeah, we'll probably finish this mission and then we'll call it for the night. So I guess what would be a good place for us to leave the discussion we were having then? The idea. So we were talking about sin nature, the idea of us being broken, and there being a chasm between us and God, and that chasm exists not because God created an unrealistic standard and then mocked us because we couldn't uphold it, but because his nature, being all good, all powerful, all loving, being holy and glorious, and because we're not that way, that created a gap between us and him. And the only one that has the ability to bridge that gap is him. And the way he chose to bridge that gap was to send his son, Jesus, to pay the penalty for our sin. And that penalty had to be paid because God is also just. Sin cannot coexist with God without there being some sort of punishment or reconciliation for that. And Jesus was the reconciliation. He died so that that chasm between us and him could be closed. And if we just think about that for a second, a God, the creator of the universe, that could do anything with his infinite power, anything good with his infinite power, would choose to reach out to those that have wronged him deeply and severely and perpetually and innately wronged him.
Not for long.
And to not only reach out, but to send his son, his divine son, to die for us, so that, and pay the price for all of that sin, so that we could be with him after everything that we've done. That is the God that Christians believe in. We're going to talk at length about culture and America and the types of things that we hear about Christians all the time, or on media, in TV, in movies, in just everyday life. Maybe Christians or people that say they're Christians that you've known that may have put a bad taste in your mouth. And let me just be frank with you. And we're going to talk about this, so don't worry about it. If you have questions, come back here. We're going to talk about this. Pretty much every stream, we're going to have some sort of discussion revolving around these issues. And play awesome games at the same time, and hopefully get better at them, like I'm not doing very well with the Hulk right now. But frankly, Christians still becoming a Christian doesn't mean that you stop being wrong, that you stop being sinful, that you stop hurting people, that you stop being imperfect. Um, the Bible, which is which we call God's word, the revealed word of his plan and his desires and what he wants us to know in book form that he gave us, and we'll talk about that too. If you're wondering, well, it's an ancient book. Why do we trust it? Why does it have credibility? Why does it matter? We'll talk about all those things. But for the sake of discussion, just for this specific part that we're talking about, we are there's nothing in God's word that has told us that we are going to just become perfect people once we decide to follow him. Once we proclaim that we believe in him, that we believe that we are sinful and that Jesus died for us and that we want him in our life, we can't automatically just become perfect beings because of that. But what does happen is because Jesus died for us and paid that penalty for us to close that justice gap, to close that gap between who God is and who we are counted as righteous, counted as perfect in the eyes of God, even though we still mess up. And in those areas that we mess up are things that we still have to deal with, and we still need forgiveness with those things, and there's still real pain and real hurt that can be caused by the things that we do, and we have to take those seriously, just like anybody should take their sin and their wrongdoing seriously. If I say something nasty to my wife or to my son or to a friend, which I still do, even though I proclaim to believe in God and Jesus is the king of my heart, I still do those things because I'm not perfect. When I do those things, I must seek forgiveness, and I must desire to love better and to be a better servant to my fellow man. But the reason I do those things is because I want to be more like who God originally created us to be. He had a design for us, and we messed up by straying from him. And the beautiful thing about inviting Jesus into your heart is that he changes you slowly but surely in those various ways. I can tell you countless areas where my life has changed for the better as a result of being as a result of Christ being in my life. I am a more patient person. I'm less selfish with my time. I'm a kinder person. And this is not, by the way, none of this is to say that these are things that I take credit for. The credit is God's. God is the one that changes us from the inside out and makes us into his image. But the point of pointing out these changes is to say that it's not just we are sinful still, and we mess up, and we require that forgiveness, but at the same time we're not just stuck where we are. We change, we grow, we become more like Christ, who lived a perfect life, who gave us that example. He sure did that too, and we'll talk about that plenty. But we have that example so that we can live more loving, Christ-like lives. And so this is all to say that if you've been burned by Christianity, and I cringe to even use that phrase because I honestly don't, it hurts me when Christians act unjustly or they act in a way that is not godly. because that happens. It does happen, and it does hurt when I see that, and it should hurt any believer when they see that. But
Is it?
that you've probably been burned before, and if you haven't, you may at some future time in your life. And I would just ask that if you're listening to what I'm saying tonight, that you understand that for someone that truly believes, someone that truly calls himself, not only calls himself a Christian, but lives out that life, that if there are so many of us that if we've done something wrong to you, we desire to make that right with you. And I don't want the wrongdoings of others to get in the way of hearing this truth, because that would be just completely missing the point for all of us. So I don't want the hardship of life, and also the seeming hypocrisy of Christians to distract us from finding truth in the reality of God and who he is and how he sent Christ for us and what his design for us is, recognizing that we fall short. So it's a bit past 12, and it's time for me to wrap up. So we'll keep talking about this. There's so much more to talk about. I actually barely even scratched the surface of the notes, so I was hoping to kind of get through a little bit more tonight, but you know what? It's fine. We beat Portal. We're playing Avengers. There's so much we can talk about. We're going to be just chilling and talking about these topics for a long time into the future. This is a hobby of mine, and I love talking about not only the most important thing in my life, but also video games. So come join me next time. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow night around 10 p.m. Pacific time, and probably going till about midnight again, so about 2 hours. We'll probably play Avengers again. We might go back to Immortals Phoenix Rising because we're still in the middle of that Let's Play. So it just kind of depends on my mood. But if you have a preference, feel free to shout out either in the chat tonight, or if you want a comment to be preserved, go onto the YouTube video and just type in, hey, I'd like to see Immortals, or I'd like to see Avengers tomorrow, and I can try to do like a majority vote kind of thing on that if people have preference. So thanks for coming out. Thank you so much for just hearing me out tonight. For those of you that stuck around, I think I'm still learning, to be honest. I'm still learning how to balance the things I want to talk about with playing the games and really enjoying and focusing on the games as well. So I'll find that balance. So just bear with me, be patient with me, please, and we'll get there. I think we'll get there sooner than later. But thanks again for coming out, and I really look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night. All right, take care and have a blessed day tomorrow. See you later.